Well, hello there. It's Liam from Unique Cars and Parts. I'm with Neil at the Trafalgar Holden Museum, and I'm standing between two legends of Holdens. This was the fourth sort of redesign from the original 48215 FJ, and we're looking at an EJ and an EH. Now I need to have a look at the front here.
This is the EJ.
This is EJ.
62.3, and this is the EH 63.4.
And the EH has got an incredibly loyal following, and there's a good reason for that, but we'll come back to that in a moment. The EJ, design-wise, it was a radical departure from the sort of bulbous, sort of rounded look of the FB and EKs.
Very much so. It's sort of taken on a little bit more of, I think, Australian flavour, and it's significantly different to anything they'd produced before.
Still with the same grey engine, though?
Same grey motor, and that was probably to its detriment, actually, but it was the first of the Premiers, and it was also came in the automatic as well.
So by now we're looking at electric windscreen wipers. We've got still drum brakes on the front?
Still drum brakes all round, yes.
But we now had the business sedan, the special, and the Premier.
That's correct.
Okay. And do you know what the difference is? We've struggled with the differences between the business sedan and the special.
The business was what they call a standard, and it was just less chrome work, less trim, if possible, less accessories. Where the Premier was really upmarket, bucket seats, heated demister, and fancier paintwork.
And leather trim?
Leather trim, yes. Yeah.
Okay, and the business sedan and the special would have come with vinyl at that stage?
They would have been all vinyl at that stage, yes.
And vinyl flooring, of course. Did the Premier have carpets?
The Premier had carpets, yes. We were really upmarket, yes. Yeah.
And was the EJ a popular car at the time?
The press again were getting into them. Same old motor, same sort of story. At the time, as I recall, I don't think it was terribly well received in the press area, but then I don't take any notice of them. They were the same people that say, oh, the new Holden's out, it's badly finished, it's badly done this, bad that, compared to the BMW. And 4 years later, here's your Holden towing the BMW down to the tip.
We got here in a BMW.
I make no apology.
Well, it sounds like we might be calling you to get back home. And this is the EH, and this is when the Holden legend began in my book. So when I go to a Holden car show, it seems like this. The people are milling around the EH. They've got their own. There's several car clubs that are EJ EH, but there's also some that are just EH, and the EHs seem to steal the show whenever I go to one. And there's a very good reason for that, isn't there?
Oh yes. Well, this was the introduction to the red motor. Came out with the 149 first, and then the 179. And it was a lot more powerful and still reasonably economical. And it's interesting because you look at the EH compared to the EJ, and they've squared it all up, and it's almost sort of like going backwards, and yet it works beautifully. I think it's, just a lovely car all round, and they really were extremely popular. I could sort of give you arguments that, the EH even today is still the most treasured motor car that Holden made, I think.
Well, I tend to agree with you, although my heart's with the HQ, but who wouldn't like an EH? And sometimes I think it's the ugly ducklings, and I'm looking across at a HD that we'll get to in a moment, but this looks absolutely fantastic. But when we were talking earlier, we were talking about the grey engine and how fantastic that was. If you were travelling around Australia, you could break down anywhere, and the parts were all interchangeable. It didn't matter if you had an FC or an FJ. Could you grab a part off a grey motor and get a red motor going?
Oh, well, you could, but you're very limited as to what you could do. But the red motors were extremely reliable.
And as time went on, of course, there would be many more red motor parts than there were grey motor parts. But just when this thing dropped, there wouldn't have been quite so many red motor parts out.
No, you'd be struggling to get red motor bits. From the normal sorts of sources that we would get the grey ones from, yes.
Now this also came in the standard model lineup. We've got the standard, the special, and the Prem. What other changes? Well, obviously, the biggest one was the engine. What other changes did the EH usher in?
That was probably about it. They made a lot of changes in the EJ with the Premier, and they all followed on in the EH. But yeah, it was still a 3-speed hydromatic if you wanted it. Three-speed on the tree was the standard.
We had synchro now.
We've got synchro now, yes. Yeah.
Well, the 3 on the tree is fantastic. Electric wipers. And if we step back and have a look inside the interior, we've got the standard General Motors instrument cluster, just revised slightly from every other preceding model. We've got a speedo, a fuel gauge, and 3 warning lights for oil, generator, and temp.
What more would you need?
Exactly. Now, this particular EH is an automatic.
This is an automatic. It goes really well. Yeah, we love it, and I think from a design point of view, at the time it had everything.
Well, it's all you would have wanted. I can see that it's got the heater in there as well.
Yes, you could get a heater as an option. Yes,
it's hard to think back to a time where, on a freezing cold morning, that having a car with a heater would have been sort of very desirable and not just something.
NASCO accessories make all the difference to your car. NASCO seatbelts are available in 3 styles and are the only seatbelts recommended by GMH. NASCO windshield washers, a clear view at the touch of a button. The NASCO car heater really keeps you warm and stops windshield fogging. NASCO accessories make all the difference to your car. So for all car accessories, remember, NASCO's the name.
So I'm just looking at the interior here, Neil, and I see this thing's got a radio as well.
Yeah, this one's got a radio. I think they were an optional extra if you wanted to buy them.
A NASCO optional extra.
Yep.
And NASCO were affiliated with Holden in a big way, but they were a separate organisation building accessories specific for Holden, weren't they?
That's correct, yep.
And this has got your standard vinyl seat, 2-tone.
Standard vinyl seat, that's they're not original. They've been, the front one has been upgraded a bit.
Reupholstered.
A few splits in the seat, but the beauty about this car is just have a listen to this. You can hear that any other place but
what I was amazed at, Neil, is you hardly push that.
Yeah. All of the doors, I bought this out of a shed. I purchased this vehicle out of a shed that was pitch black. Had a flat battery, so we couldn't see anything. And my son walked around and he just closed each door and he said, have a listen to this. And we just bought it on the spot.
Wow. Well, it was literally a barn find.
It was a barn find, yeah.
Well, and what a find it is. Okay, so we're at the back of the EH, and this one, this barn find, has got the 179 red motor.
It's got the 179, yes.
That would be the most desirable, of course.
Absolutely. You have to have a bit of power, don't you?
And back for those that don't know, these came in a LC and HC, or was that a later model where they did that?
I think it was in this model, but I could be stood corrected.
And those that don't know, LC standing for low compression and HC standing for high compression, and the high compression engine was slightly more powerful.
I think the high compression was the 179 actually, and the low compression was the 149, but I'm not absolutely certain.
And I'm looking now. The visibility into the back of this car is remarkable compared to a modern car. You can see everything. You wouldn't want to be getting up to any mischief in there because the people behind it have a look. But very very ornate ashtray for the rear passengers to sit in.
And in some of the cars, not the Holdens, but like the Buick that we saw before, it's got individual ashtrays for all 4 passengers. So, but yes. Ashtrays front and back.
And you'd know you were driving something special because just as it's got the word special on the side, it's got a great big special badge right across the glove box there next to the radio.
Absolutely. It's amazing when you look at the EJ and the EH that the interiors are almost identical. But outside, they've done quite a lot of work on the body to make them completely different.
Now, if we move over to the EJ, this has got a more rounded rear windscreen. So, to my mind, it looks a little bit better than the EH, to be honest with you, and looks like it would be a little bit more expensive.
Well, you would think so. That's what I say. They've squared the EH up compared to this one. But as I say, it was an extremely popular vehicle, absolutely.
Well, whether it be the EJ or the EH, it takes your fancy. Both of them are fantastic looking cars. When you stand back here and you look in the rear of both of them, it's interesting to note that there's seems to be very, very little difference between the two, interior-wise.
That's right.
It's almost, I would defy anyone to be able to pick the difference between an EJ and an EH just looking at the interiors of them.
Absolutely, they're almost identical, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, perhaps there's something slightly different on the door trim, but it's very hard to spot. Of course, the rear taillight clusters are a little bit different. As you mentioned, they've squared them off. The EH, to my mind, looks a little bit better than the EJ. And it continues with the fin sort of look, but this is perhaps a little bit more elegant.
Squaring it up a little bit, and I think it looks a little bit better. It's amazing when you think that they squared the car up, and yet the appearance still came out really well. So.
It did. One final thing, Neil. Bumper overriders, were they standard, or is this an option that somebody's put on?
No, I think the overriders were standard, and later on you could go to the rubber inserted overriders as well. But in this model, they were just.
So I'm looking back at the EK and the FB, and I can see bumper overriders on that. Were they optional?
No, they were all standard.
And the EJ, they did away with them.
Did away with them for the EJ, yes.
Okay. And then they put them back on the EH.
Yep. Yeah.
They changed their mind a lot, those old Holden boys, didn't they?
Absolutely, yeah.
Or whichever way you look at it, great cars. Neil, it's been great. Thank you for showing us the EJ and EH models. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Action starts with AC. AC. Spark plugs. AC plugs give instant action and year-round reliability. A certain start, hail, rain or shine. AC plugs are the only plugs recommended by GMH. When you change to AC spark plugs.
Keep your Holden, all Holden. If parts need replacing when you have your car serviced, insist on genuine Holden parts. Genuine Holden parts are engineered to the exact standard specified for original Holden equipment. Genuine Holden parts are guaranteed. They'll keep your Holden going long after inferior replacement parts have let you down. Insist on genuine Holden parts, designed, tested, and approved by GMH engineers.